One game to go in Tampa, Florida. They'll finish out the regular season, and then all hands on deck for an offseason that will involve a head coaching search and the new era of New Orleans Saints football. Covering all of it for The Advocate is Luke Johnson. He's with us each and every Thursday. Luke, Happy New Year. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Doing well. I know, obviously, a very, very tough time down there in the city of New Orleans. I'd be remiss if I didn't just ask kind of about the tenor around the Saints facility as they get ready to leave town, but understanding that the city's hurting a little bit.
Yeah, it's obviously yesterday was a really, really weird day just for anybody who lives in New Orleans. I think they opened up yesterday, like yesterday's practice, by saying like a prayer for those involved. That doesn't really happen very often, man. It's extraordinary circumstances here, and I think everybody's kind of feeling that, and it makes this last week just weird. It's just kind of a weird vibe, and I'm sitting out here at the facility right now. I got all the flags at half staff, and they got to focus on a game and everything, but it's just the game feels a little bit smaller.
Understandable, and that's kind of what we're here to just kind of talk about as a kind of an escape for people, I think, at times. So let's talk about kind of what's at stake here. I realize they're not going to the playoffs. I realize that some folks are worried more about the draft and the head coaching search, but players still going to compete, and obviously they've got an opportunity to impact Tampa. So what's the focus like in that locker room?
It's hard to say because I really feel like since Rizzi took over, the focus, the vibe, whatever you want to call it, it's all felt really positive. Even just talking to guys, they're saying nobody's checked out, and they're all saying the right things, and it feels that way. But it's hard to match that up with what we've seen the last couple of weeks. Getting blown out by Green Bay, and then really being not competitive against a bad Raiders team. They can say the right things, but are they fully believing it? It's kind of hard to say. I will say that I think there's a decent chance that at least like Chris Olave plays this week. We're still kind of waiting and seeing on what happens with Derek Carr and Alvin Kamara. I think I'd probably give Alvin a little bit better shot than Derek Carr. But I think they still might have some guys play, and I know people are making a big deal out of draft stuff, but they can go no lower. They currently own the 10th pick in the draft. They can't go any lower than that. Even if they win, they're locked in. 10 is as low as they can slide. And even if they lose, it's possible they could stay at 10th too, because they would need one of or both of the Raiders and the Bears to lose or to win to move up, and both those teams are playing like playoff teams this week. So the draft order stuff, I think is just, I think you can just eliminate that from consideration when you're looking at this week's game. You can just feel totally fine rooting for the Saints to win because it's not. There's potential it doesn't change no matter what the outcome is.
You've been discouraged with Spencer Rattler over the last couple of weeks?
I don't know if discouraged is the right thing. I mean, it's just he's making mistakes that young rookie quarterbacks make, especially guys who, obviously there were some people who thought he should have gone higher in the draft, but the reality is he was a 5th round pick. And when you surround him with what the Saints have offensively, it's going to make the bad stuff look a lot worse. So I still think that it's, even after 5 starts and 6 games, I still think it's just way, 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 way too soon to make any sort of judgment on him. I still like that we're seeing some really good flashes out of him. But he's playing without 40% of his offensive line and basically the entire starting skill position group. So I still it's just, there's way too much gone for me to make any sort of decisive judgment on his play. You know what I'm saying?
For sure. Based on what you thought in August, how do you feel about Trevor Penning's year as it comes to a close?
I mean, I feel a lot better about him now than I thought this summer. I thought this summer was a little bit of a okay, it's definitely not as bad as it had been his first 2 seasons, but there's still potential for it to go pretty far south. And I think he's just steadily gotten better throughout the season to the point where, we've got something coming out in Sunday's paper where you're just looking at like, okay, who are the foundational pieces of this team? Like who are the players who are 28 and under, guys in their first or second contract who can help this team, throughout this rebuild. I put him on my top 10, which it probably tells you something about the state of the Saints roster, but I think he's at the very least giving you functional, average NFL offensive tackle play this year, which is a lot more than we thought we were going to get out of him. And I think that if he can continue to build on that and get on this like upward swing, he can be a good player for you. Like going into the year, we were legitimately wondering if he was going to be in the starting lineup at all, or if he was going to be benched midway through the year. And he's been like kind of one of the only guys on this team who's been there down in, down out, snap in, snap out. And he's played well enough to be kind of penciled in as the starter next year as well.
88 Pro Bowlers announced today. The Saints did not have one of 3 teams in the NFL without a Pro Bowler. Does that surprise you?
No, it doesn't. I think JT Gray could have made it. He's been really, really good as usual on special teams. But even if JT Gray made it, that's a special teams player. Like he plays 10, 11 snaps a game. They clearly have nobody on defense who is really worthy of it. And then when you look at them offensively, I mean, all their best players are hurt.
Yeah.
I think the only guy you could really make a case for is Alvin, who even having missed a couple games, 950 rushing yards, 1,500 scrimmage yards. Those are better numbers than he's put up in some of his other Pro Bowl seasons. But he's really the only one that you can make a legitimate case for. Everybody else is just all their good players are hurt. Yeah, it would have been fun to see Rashid Shaheed play a whole season, and Chris Olave and Derek Carr, and see what they could have been with that offense. But their leading receiver has 450 yards or something like that. It's just there's nothing here, and the injuries played a big part of that. But it's just also just the talent in this roster is not good enough.
I thought Foster Moreau's had a pretty good month here in an offense that's looking for anybody to produce, and he's done a pretty good job of that. What have you made of his performance?
Yeah, I've really liked the season Foster's had. I wrote a story on him they published right before the Packers game. Obviously, that was a dud, but his numbers are really modest. But when you look at him kind of deeper, he's I don't know, 30th most catches among tight ends in the NFL. It's whatever, but before that Packers game is probably pretty close to it still. It was 144 passer rating when targeting him. He has a team lead in touchdown catches. The advanced numbers really like him. He was number 9 among NFL tight ends in receiving EPA, expected points added, despite the fact that he'd barely been targeted. And beyond that, he is, as you know from the LSU days, he's an extreme glue guy. And he's the guy that kind of keeps everything from falling apart in a season like this. So he's been excellent, man. I'd like to see him a little bit more involved in the offense. He'll never be a guy who's going to catch 70 balls a year, right? But I think he's proven he can handle a little bit more than what he's been given so far. And he's under contract for next year, and I'm certain the Saints will bring him back because he's a big part of what they like.
All right, let's talk big picture here briefly because I'm not as concerned with how this game goes on Sunday. Tampa seems to have found something with Baker. They're playing pretty well. Obviously, you're seeing some flashes from Michael Penix over the last week and a half, and then Carolina hasn't been a dumpster fire the last couple of months. Do you feel like the South is moving forward a little bit, and the Saints are playing catch up?
Yeah, I think so. The South is still it still is what it is, right? The Bucs are 9-7.
Yeah.
And they're leading the division going into Week 18. It's still not a good division, but it's not like the dumpster fire that it has been the last couple of years. I think it's going to be harder for the Saints to win, and I think that's probably it's probably good for them to take that little dose of reality, right? Because with the division being what it was the last couple seasons, that's why we saw the Saints still be very aggressive in how they manage their roster, because it looked winnable. It looked like a division you could make the playoffs in. I think that's a little less certain now for the Saints. It might be just time to kind of bite the bullet and do the hard thing here, because we've seen this roster, like some version of this roster for the last 4 years just hasn't gotten the job done, and now it's just older. They have 48 players on the roster this year, including guys who are on IR who are 28 and younger. Only 3 of them have made a Pro Bowl. That's Eric McCoy, Rashid Shaheed, and JT Gray. And 2 of those guys made it as specialists, and McCoy was the only one they drafted. And this is guys who made a Pro Bowl in a Saints uniform. Obviously, Chase Young made it with the Commanders. But, they've got to get younger, and they've got to get young impact players. Like, the draft is going to be so important for them this year and frankly, the next couple of years. Because, this thing that they have going right now isn't working. And like you said, the other teams in the division are getting better.
Certainly appears that way. One more. Enjoy your travels to Tampa, and we'll talk next week, Luke. Thanks, man.
Sounds good, buddy.
Hey, it's on. Thanks for watching Hunt on Saints. Before you leave, help us out a little bit. Hit that like button, leave your comments in the section below, and hit that subscribe button so you get all our content right here from Hunt on Saints. We'll see you next time.